Yeah, welcome back. So today we will do law of refraction as a NEP problem. So what I have got is a medium here, and light is incident from the point X. It originates from point X, falls on this surface, which I am going to describe as h of x is equal to 0, and then it undergoes refraction and moves along this line. So if I, this is the tangent here, I'm sorry, this is the tangent here, and if I draw the normal, this is the normal, then to the normal, this incidence light makes an angle of uh, uh, incidence theta x and angle of refraction theta y. Then we know that the point x is determined, or rather this point x star is determined in such a way, if you have to reach this point from y to some point z here, if you want to reach, then this is determined in such a way that the ratio of the angle of sine of the angle of incidence to refraction is equal to Vx by Vc, which is equal to mu. So we want to now derive this same thing as an optimization problem, where our intuition is that light travels to minimize it, light travels from y to z such that the time of travel from from y to z via x is equal to is minimum. So if this is defined as the logical law of nature, that it will try to, the ray of light will try to reach from y to z in minimum possible time, given that the velocity of the light in this medium is Vx, the velocity of light is Vy. Then if this is defined as a natural law that nature will try to follow, you can actually show that then the point x star will be such that this ratio will be, the law of refraction will be valid. So this can be rather shown as a consequence of this law, that the travel time from y to z should be minimum. So if this is the case, first of all, what should be the objective? Objective is minimize the travel time from y to z through x. So what is the travel, what is, how will you calculate this travel time? So first of all, write what is the travel time. So the travel time is distance from y to x. So I'll write it as x minus y I'll write it as x minus y, the distance, Euclidean distance, divided by the velocity in the medium, which is Vx, plus x minus z distance, the distance of, first we took the distance of this segment, divided it by this velocity. Then we took the distance of this segment and we will divide it by the velocity v of y. So if we do that, this, and now our objective is to minimize, choose x such that this is minimum. Now, are there any constraints? Actually, I mean, this x is a two-dimensional thing, x1 comma x2, because it's a two-dimensional plane, so therefore we need x1 comma x2. Now, my question is, next question is there any constraint that has to be satisfied, or is it an unconstrained optimization problem? So there is a constraint, which is that this is happening, a refraction is happening at this surface h, h of x is equal to 0. So this point x star cannot be somewhere here or somewhere else. It has to be exactly on this surface. So therefore, I need to satisfy the constraint h is equal to 0. And now it is should be very clear to you that this is actually a NEP problem. Is it not? This is indeed a NEP problem. So let's write first of all what is this x minus y. X minus y is under root of x1 minus y1 square plus x2 minus y2 square. And what is minus z? It is again the square root of x minus z1 square plus x1 minus z1 square times x2 minus z2 square. Correct? Okay. So now we will assume that the point x star is going to be such that this gradient is not equal to 0, so that the regularity condition is satisfied. I am solving a NEP problem and I am going to assume that the gradient, which is actually this normal vector, is a non-zero vector. I think that's a reasonable thing to assume. So uh, so now what does the Lagrange multiplier theorem require? It requires that gradient of this, your function tau, the time taken with respect to x, plus there is only one constant, so I'll use lambda, times the gradient of hx should be 0 at x star and hx star should be equal to 0. Is it not? All this is what is the necessary condition. Let's not worry right now about the sufficiency condition. Let us just worry about the necessary. Let us just worry about the necessary condition. However, uh, actually sufficiency is also straightforward because the objective function is a coercive function. So you can argue from there that the minimum exists, and then if you find only one point x star which meets the necessary condition, then the coercivity tells that there is a minimum, and this tells you that there is only one point, then it has to be the global minimum. So therefore, right now I am not going to need the sufficiency condition for this. Okay. So then what is my first task? My first task is to create the derivative of this, the gradient of this and gradient of this. So if I calculate gradient of one of this, then equally well I can calculate the gradient of other. So let me proceed with calculating the gradient of this. So if I take this partial derivative with respect to x1, then I will apply chain rule. So essentially, what is this here? This is to the power of half. So a half will come down. Then you will take to the minus 1 will come here. So therefore it will become, while taking the derivative, it will become minus half. So square root will, so the under root term will go down. So I will get x1 square minus x2 square. So I will just simply write this as, in short form, I will write it as distance of x minus y. Then I am going to take partial derivative. I am applying chain rule. So I am going to take partial derivative of this with respect to x1. So this term is not going to contribute anything. this 2 will come out, so therefore I'll get 2, and I'll have to do x1 minus y1, so I'll get x1 minus y1, and then I take partial derivative of x1 minus y1 with respect to x1, which is only 1, so therefore this 2 will, later on this 2 and this 2 is going to cancel out, and similarly you will get the other term as, for what is the other term? The other term is for this particular thing, right? Okay, so I'm sorry, we'll first close, we'll just go systematically. So first I just write this, which is same as x1 minus y1 by x minus y. Similarly, if you look at partial derivative of this with respect to x2, then it is going to be x2 minus y2. Where does the x2 minus y2 come from? The second term, x2 minus y2 divided by length of x minus y. And so if you put them together in the vector form, then what do you get? You get that gradient of this with respect to x is nothing but equal to the vector x minus y divided by the length of x minus y. Why? Because why? Because you will keep x1 minus y1 as the first coordinate. Then after this x1 minus y1, you will take x2 minus y2 as the second coordinate, and then x minus y is the common term here, but this is nothing but the vector x minus vector y, which is what I have written here, divided by this vector, which is nothing but also the unit vector in the direction x minus y. Because what is being done, the same vector is being divided by its length. Similarly, you can now write that the gradient of this second one, which is the second one, x minus z. So the gradient of this with respect to x minus z is going to be equal to length of x minus z into x minus z. Is it not? So now you know the gradient. What you have to do, if you want to calculate the gradient of this function, take the gradient of this divided by vx, take the gradient of this divided by vy. So therefore now we can write gradient of our tau is going to be equal to 1 by vx x minus y divided by length of x minus y plus 1 by vy length of x minus z divided by the length of x minus z. This becomes the gradient function. And now where does the x star has to lie? X star has to lie in such a way that this calculated at x time plus the gradient of this calculated at this should be equal to 0. And what is lambda? Lambda is a scalar. Lambda is a scalar. So therefore, what we come to the conclusion is that the gradient vector, and the normal, the normal to the constraint surface, and the gradient vector of the objective function, they should be collinear, because the lambda could be positive or negative, it doesn't matter, it could be anything in the any peak ray, so it has to be just collinear. Okay, so in other words, when I say it is collinear, what I mean to say is that this gradient vector is going to be on this line, the same line which is along with the normal. It is going to be there. So let me just take this picture down for more work. And now what I am going to do is I am going to take this normal aligned with the tangent. I am going to align it with respect to this simple straight line. I mean on the so I have just made it with respect to the horizontal line, as if I am tilting this picture up by a certain degree to make it horizontal. Then what will happen? The normal will become the vertical line. So this becomes my normal. So there is this point y. This is being looked at the optimal point x star, and this becomes my angle of incidence theta x, and let me extend it down here, and this becomes theta y, and now the now what we are going to do is we will plot, or rather we will mark these gradient vectors on this. So this one is unit vector in the direction x minus y. This is the unit vector in this direction to be scaled by vx. So in this direction I'm going to take in this a length of 1 by vx, and let's say get this particular point. Similarly, for the other one, in the x minus, this is the unit vector in the direction of x minus z, I am going to scale it by vy. So let me see. Somewhere here is going to be my 1 by vy. So now what I am going to do is I am going to do a vector addition of this to this, which is as good as this is as good as completing a parallelogram. So how do I complete the parallelogram? Because I am adding two vectors, so I can use the parallelogram law of identity. It's not come out very neatly. This should have come on this vertical line, but it's okay. I complete this parallelogram, and the diagonal, which is the diagonal that we need to consider here. This is the diagonal that we need to consider when we add two vectors like this. in the parallelogram law of identity, then we take this as the resultant diagonal. So here we have one vector here, another vector here, and so we complete the parallelogram. Then this becomes the diagonal, and this diagonal we know from our optimality condition is aligned with respect to, is collinear with respect to this normal, is collinear with respect to this normal. So therefore when I extend this diagonal, this whole thing is a straight line. So once I have done this, then my geometry tells me very straightforwardly that this and this intercept should be same, identical. But what is this intercept? This intercept is, this is the angle theta x, then this is the perpendicular, and the hypotenuse is 1 by Vx. So it is that the perpendicular is going to be perpendicular divided by the sine theta x should, I'm sorry, the perpendicular divided by 1 by Vx, which is the hypotenuse, should be equal to the sine of theta x, which means that this perpendicular is sine theta x by Vx. Similarly, this perpendicular, the other perpendicular here is going to be equal to, other perpendicular here is going to be equal to sine theta y by V of y. And this geometry is very obvious that these two perpendiculars are of equal length. So therefore we will get sine of theta x by Vx is equal to sine of theta y by Vy, which is to say that sine of theta x by sine of theta y is equal to Vx by Vy, which is equal to mu, which is actually the law of refraction, that the angle of ratio of the sine of the angle of incidence to the sine of angle of refraction, it has to be in the ratio of the velocities of the light in the two mediums, which is equal to the mu. So now we have seen one beautiful example in the physics, using our NEP problem, where even we have not assumed that this curvature is a straight line or anything like that. We have not assumed any of such kind of thing. It could be any curvature, but just has to be smooth enough so that we can write it as hx is equal to 0, and that proves our theorem. Now in this case, as I said, since there is only one point, geometry is very clear. Since there is only one point, even if I have not done the and the function is coercive, so even if I have not done the I have not done the sufficiency conditions, this is fine. But look at this problem. Actually both these problems I have taken from these are example problems in Burtsikas. That's where I have in the section of NEP problem. The other problem that now I am discussing is, suppose I want to minimize half of x1 square plus x2 square plus x3 square subject to x1 plus x2 plus x3 equal to 3. Maybe I have already done it earlier, but if I have not, then also it's okay. I write the Lagrangian function to minimize. Again, there is only one constraint, and its gradient is non-zero. So the regular gradient is, what is the gradient? 1 1 1 transpose, which is non-zero. So regularity is straightforward, and at the optimal x star lambda star, this should be 0, which is to say that x1 star, which at x star lambda star, x1 plus lambda should be 0, x2 plus lambda should be 0, x3 plus lambda should be 0, and obviously this should be You are not here in front of me to correct me. Sometimes I can make mistakes, but this should be equal to 3. So this tells us that x1 is equal to x2 is equal to x3, and since the sum of them is equal to 3, so therefore x1 like candidates are only one candidate is there which is equal to 1, and lambda becomes equal to -1. Now there is only one point which satisfies the necessary condition. Again, take recourse if the objective function uses norms, which is here we are having the square of the norm, then it is a coercive function, and therefore immediately we can say that global minimum has been obtained. The function being objective function being coercive. But sometimes just obtaining this will not suffice. Why would that be? Because suppose I had told you that our problem is maximize half of x1 square plus x2 square plus x3 square subject to x1 x2 plus x3 equal to 3. Then immediately first thing that you should be doing is convert it into an equivalent minimization problem, because all our theory we are developing for minimization problem. So you should write this as x1 plus x2 plus x3 is equal to 3. Now if you if you write the Lagrangian function, the Lagrangian function will turn out to be minus of half of x1 square plus x2 square plus x3 square plus lambda of x1 plus x2 plus x3 minus of 3, and therefore when you put the Lagrangian multiplier theorem, you want x1 minus of x1 plus lambda to be 0, minus of x2 plus lambda to be 0, minus of x3 plus lambda to be 0, and again x1 plus x2 plus x3 to be equal to 3, which will tell you that x1 is equal to star should be equal to x2 star is equal to x3 star is equal to 1, and the the lambda will turn out to be positive number 1. Now in this case, as x goes to positive infinity, the objective function goes to minus infinity. So the this length of x going to infinity, the value of objective function goes to minus infinity. So the function is not coercive. So you cannot say about existence of minimum. So though the first order condition has been satisfied, it's quite clear that this is actually this is actually not the maximum. Why is it not the maximum? Because what we have found just now 111 is actually a minimum to this problem. There is only minimum. Indeed there is. So there is, this is not a maximum. So what does this mean? The necessary conditions of minimization have been satisfied. The first order necessary conditions have been satisfied, but we are not able to say something about the second order condition. So that's why we need second order conditions, and the second order conditions for NEP I have already derived. So you can very easily immediately check that because the Hessian matrix of the objective function is negative, definite. When I take the null space of this and write that as matrix Z, so the projected Hessian is going to be Z times minus I times Z, which is same as minus Z transpose Z, a 2 cross 2 matrix, which is actually a negative definite matrix. So we required that the projected Hessian should be positive definite, when we frame the problem as the minimization problem, but indeed here it turns out to be the other way around. It turns out to be negative definite, so the second order necessary conditions are not satisfied, and hence this is not a minimum. So there is only a minimum to this problem. This problem has a solution, but this problem does not have a solution. All right, so let's stop this lecture here, and we'll continue with in the next class. Thank you.